So I kind of want to gatekeeping it, in a sense. But
So, with that in mind, let's talk about actually who's in the room. We've got publishers. We've got some agencies. We got some brands. We also have some students from Fordham University. But we also have our VIPs.
So we have 2 incoming agency interns here, and we have a group of other students from Fordham as well. So I just want to give them a round of applause because this is the first time we have Gen Z Navigator. So before we start, I just want to quickly introduce the 3 panelists here. Can we go around and introduce yourself? I lead the business intelligence and yield team for the Americas region at the BBC Studios.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Socheata. I work with Zook at the BBC Studios, and I'm the business intelligence.
Hi everyone, I'm also a Fordham student. Currently, I actually graduate 11 Monday, so I'm excited about that. And I'm currently going to be graduating with a business technology degree from Fordham University, and I'll be working this summer at McCann as a data strategy team.
And also, I'm Thao. I'm a Fordham student too, and will be a summer intern at Ogilvy agency, and I'm happy to share and happy to have you guys here.
But yes, so the purpose of this session, when I thought about it, and I had this conversation with Rob, I don't want this to be a conversation where I talk about Gen Z, and I would like for them to talk about themselves, and this is not the conversation about how we manage Gen Z. This is actually about how can we attract, identify, cultivate, and retain talent. And the reason I believe firmly in it is because I don't think that it starts from when Gen Z are in the room, that we pay attention to them and learn more about them and let's try to cultivate them. It started way before we hire them, way before we interview someone. I'm someone who's been out there talking to students a lot. I can guarantee you that's the best way to interview. That's really the best way to interview. That's the reason why I have this group of talent sitting here with me, because I've known them through many experiences, and directly through Blooming Crisis, which is what I've been just very passionately doing outside of my full-time job, is to help people blooming crisis. But yeah, that's how we can tell how can we attract Gen Z, and how can we identify them? How can we cultivate them and retain them before they are in the room? Cultivate a relationship with the next generation of audience, right? Because oftentimes we think about pitching, whether it's positive and advertising on news websites is great for brands, but we forget about the experience that even us ourselves navigate on a website. The same ads could feel very different when it advertised on a premium feeling website versus on something that just bombarding you with ads all over the place. And that suggests that the quality of and trust of the environment matter more than the news agencies alone.
Yeah, and can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so what I'd like to add is that we grew up on the internet. We grew up bombarded with ads from all over corner of the screen, all the pixels in your computer. We're seeing ads. So I think we're more used to ads. That's why, for me, the quality of the website, my experience with the website, the UX, UI, the design of the website would give me a stronger impact on my, first impression of the brand.
Great point. And then you can also see on the pie chart here is kind of about the same between positive and negative. So it could go either way, right? So the next one I want you guys to pay attention to is what would make you, meaning Gen Z, consider a career in ad ops or rank ops. Because we are talking about people who are already in the room and people who are new to the industry. How can we attract them? And what we find is that Gen Z is drawn to career growth and problem solving. And you can see the breakout on the left-hand side of the slide as well. But sure, we talk about mission as important. Purpose remains important, but Gen Z appears more motivated by growth, skills, and real business impact. So we really have to think about how we speak this to them and not about how great we are. And I highlighted the red areas here, because these are the people where you see they have interest in media and advertising industry, which is our industry. So even though earlier career talent investment ranked number 3, but it's actually higher, even higher than data strategy and problem solving when it comes to just media and advertising industry interest. So the next one that I want you to look at is what most make you want to leave a company, answered by our Gen Z, because a lot of us, I'm sure that we don't have to disclose it, but a lot of us struggling with retaining talent, right? And why? How? We feel like we've done everything, and sometimes it's like things are outside of our control. But I hope that this chart leaves you with what we have in our control. There are a lot of things here that we can control as managers. So the top reason, like 80% of them choose, is no growth path. So for the first section that I want everyone to hear from you guys is why would Gen Z talent choose this place to start with? And I want to ask, what do you know about AdOps and RevOps? Obviously, you're still in school. I can tell that I didn't learn this when I was in school. But what would attract you to these roles?
Yes. So funny story I want to tell you guys is actually interviewing for our AdOps intern position for the summer, and I was actually getting myself to like the last round, but definitely not landing the offer. I can somewhat tell you like what led me to there. And I was never searching for AdOps. I never know what it is. RevOps. I was just finding it under like a very marketing generic internship search. And when I first thought about it, it was seems like a back office to me. Like like for us, when you tell us data, we know like charge, bar, and then when you tell us like social media, we know how to film videos. What is like AdOps really mean? All I can think of, maybe it's like I used to be a marketing operation intern when I do a lot of paperwork, and it's just like all I think about is just like administrative, repetitive, and I didn't realize like there's like a tech side of it. Like and my experience with it is when I get more like to the next round of the interview, I was getting more involved, like researching more about it. I was getting like so excited. Like I feel like ad tech have so many opportunity and like so many. It's just like a space that nobody really know about it. So I kind of want to gatekeeping it, in a sense. But it feels like very amazing. But like one of the problem when I first thought about it is that I don't really see like a clear rolling for it. You guys here are definitely the expert. You guys know a lot and you're very good at it, but how can I tell the differences? Because I'm not in the field. So I would say that if you really tell Gen Z in like marketing and tell more about your experience out there, and definitely there's a lot of people who are interested in it, but right now we don't really like see a lot of story around it.
Mm-hmm. So kind of to build up on what Thao just shared, if you want to add anything that is there anything that our industry can add more to make it clearer for you to be interested in this career path?
Yeah, so for me, I've had most of my internship experiences have been more on the analytical side, and I guess to bring more clarity on that, most of the analytical work I've done has been to hone on the creative, and I guess I would like to know more about how you can really hone those analytical skills to actually help with the operational side. And to be honest, I helped with the graphs, and like that one experience actually helped me see the other ways you can use the analytical side. And in particular, like in school, when we take these different database classes and these data-driven marketing classes, you're not usually given, for example, like survey data. I had to extract the data, and I had to, because most of our options were like you could select multiple, so I had to like dummy code the variables and like figure out, okay, like how do I make this graph like actually coherent? And so like that was my first experience really seeing that analytical side in a more of an operational sense, and really I would like to know more, I guess, how I can hone on those skills. Still working? Yeah, how are you honing on those skills on other aspects besides the creative, as important as the creative is, I don't feel like there's a lot of transparency in other ways analytics can be used.
Great. So I guess that the takeaway here for us listening to Thao and Uk is it is not about just, we can't just tell them about the role. We have to explain to them why this work matters, and especially why it matters to them. How can they apply this skill set and make it transferable for their skill set wherever they go as well.
Another thing I'd also like to add is like, for example, when I've done analytical work with the creative side, I've actually been able to see that sort of impact. And I would like, I guess, if I were working on an ad, I'd love to also see that impact. And just give like an example, like one of my prior internships, I had the opportunity to work with the business project, and my role was primarily analytical. I had to like look at different social media engagements and looking at what stories increase engagement and what gone and impression rates, and from there I was able to pitch to the communications team the stories surrounding these specific exonerees and their to help bridge the sort of empathy gap that I was seeing based off my data analytics, and I was able there to see directly make an impact. And so I guess if I could also see that sort of same sort of impact of operational side in analytics, that would be something that would make me interested.
And I think for my personal takeaways underlying the why, when I ask, let's say if I come to Socheata asking her to do something, I want to make sure that she understands why I'm asking it, how is the data going to be used, so that she's not in the silo of like just data crunching, but understand how it ties back to the bigger business impact. And then moving on to the second section we have, I want the audience and want you to understand how we are missing on the developing talent. But let's start with Socheata. You've now been inside the business for a while, and obviously I can speak that you've grown tremendously since. What has helped you grow the most, and what do you think bring out the best in you that many of us can learn from
So,
as managers?
just for my background, I was an academic researcher, or research assistant actually. We were working on e-commerce data. So basically this whole ad agency publisher thing was completely new to me. What attracted me to the job posting was I knew all the tools. I knew clearly what the job is asking for. I have the skills for it. I'm missing the business context completely. I have no clue what this industry does. I don't even know what a publisher was until I started the job. And so what helped me in that was support in just putting me in rooms where I don't belong in. Just placing me in like different parts of the business where I'm just listening to stakeholders. I'm observing how they work. I'm observing what they're asking for. And for me, that was the most valuable thing, because I'm able to extrapolate and kind of connect the dots myself in, okay, this is what the business is doing. This is what is needed for me. This is what I need to provide. But in addition to that, it's also, I was allowed to make mistakes. I was able to learn as I go, and there's so many mistakes I've made in my first 2-3 months because I was new. I over-reported revenue by a lot, but at the end of the day,
We wish.
yeah, we got really happy, but then, yeah, I checked and we were not happy that day. I was actually like nervous texting at like 11 p.m. like, oh my god, please.
And she didn't stay overnight to correct the mistake.
But yes, so I would say having that business context to add in addition to my technical skills allow me to learn very quickly. And then in addition to that, having the opportunity to be able to sit in with our SVP or like our sales director, that is so valuable in just getting to know them and making it more efficient in the way I work and the way they request things. So it helps everybody when that happens. Yeah.
I want to add more to it because I think that, yes, I agree with you. The safety when you work is very important. I know and I can relate to it when I started my career. I also made a ton of mistakes, and it was very nerve-wracking to know that, like, oh my god, like I feel like I just cost the company X, Y, and Z, but it's not true. The more that you can improve, the more it actually benefits not just you but also the team, the company itself. But I think that one thing that was really helpful is how we work together as well, because I have been in this industry for much longer than Socheata, right? So I have much better understanding of the business, but I trust her skill set. She came to work with very solid data skill. And of course, I had my own process before she came, but I wanted her to create her own process. I wanted to make sure that she understands the outcome of the business, all the nuances she needs to know. And sometimes she made assumptions along the way thinking that it was right. And sometimes it was not right. But then we learned through that process and kind of refine that process together, but based on her framework, not mine. So that's something that I was so happy to be able to let go, allow Socheata to fully own her own process, automate things that would take me hours to do, and she could do it in 30 minutes. And that, I think, is very important. As a manager, I find it very important for us to also know our strength and play to our strength, but also identify our team's strength so that we allow them to have that autonomy and trust to believe in themselves that they could do even a better work than us. It takes humility, but would you agree that it helps?
I think having that freedom to create my own framework and own the process, and at the same time own the mistakes, like holding myself to that like accountability and responsibility of my own process, I think is such for me it works very well because I'm a sponge. I'm absorbing things and I'm reiterating. I'm working on the process continuously. So because I'm at the end of the day, this is now mine. Like having a process, a report that I can call mine and being responsible for it, I'm going out of my way to ask a person in RevOps questions. I'm asking the sales planners questions. I'm asking the sellers questions. Also, this process can be as accurate as possible. So thank you for adding that. I think that's one of the most important things in my growth journey.
And do you find more meaning in what you do?
Of course, yeah. I think looking back at as my experience as like a research assistant, it feels a little bit siloed in that I was pulling data, I was writing code, but I'm not contributing in a meaningful way, I'd say overall. Like my work was in the background. I wasn't really interacting with the other different members of the teams, of the researchers, or like professors. So owning that business, like I said, and going to different stakeholders, I'm able to grasp more at a higher level of what the business is, how each team interacts with another, and how that basically turn into the ads that we see on bbc.com. That was great.
And I think that it's helpful for everyone in the room to understand more about what it means when we talk about business intelligence, because it's quite a unique type like function that we have at the BBC, but they just use different terms in other publishers. But basically our team oversee all the revenue performance, budgeting, forecasting, sales target, commission. We are in the heart of it right now, and then pricing and inventory, like rate card, like a lot of different hats. So Socheata was already thrown into the fire from day one, and she learns as she goes. So yeah, that's why it feels like we've been working together for years. But there's a question for all of you, because I know that we work together through a lot of the initiatives we do together with Blooming Crisis, and there are a lot of things I personally reflect on, and I learn a lot that I apply to my work at the BBC and how I can bring out the best in the people that I work with. Can you just very quickly tell the room something that either managers should do more or less, or just stop completely to bring out the best in you guys?
Yeah, so I've obviously, like, while in university, I've had many different internships, and I've gone through many different interviews. And something I've noticed, especially now with interviews, and I don't know if this was similar, obviously, with the older generation and under my age interviewing, is that like you'll be asked the question, and it's like you feel more like you're being interrogated rather than conversation. And just some kind of bit ironic because, and I appreciate this. Like university, my mentors, they tell us to go into interviews as a conversation, and you go within like that mindset, and then you're met with the opposite sometimes. And to give like an example. I was like asked, like I was interviewing for like a data-driven role where you're literally given client data and then you work with the client, and then I was asked with no context whatsoever to anything. I was just asked like, you're working with a client that have no data, what are you gonna do? like what's the context? Why don't they have the data? Was I blocked? Like, like what if like did it just disappear? Like is someone doing it? Like it felt like I was like solving a riddle, and I was like, I went about the way I went about answering that question was I was literally like I was like getting flashbacks to looking at the job description, and I was like. I was like listing these terms that I was remembering, and I somehow pulled it out of my brain and answered it like I went to like the next round, but I was just like, I shouldn't be feeling like I'm being interrogated. And like another example, similar instance, like I was being asked, you're finishing a project and you need to make sure the person after you that's continuing it is gonna do well, and you can't go to your boss about it. What are you gonna do? And it's like I understand the reasoning. They want to see how I speak to managers, how I organize myself. It's like if I don't know what the project is, like I feel like it's more of a context by context basis. So I wouldn't say not to ask those questions, but sort of provide a transparency to maybe providing more clarity behind it, more context, the reasoning behind it, so that the younger generation who hasn't had all that experience feels like they're having a conversation rather than being interrogated. So I'd say do less of that.
I can follow up. So Oak was saying like, we want to see like the context, like the bigger picture, and like that was like Socheata saying before, like when she learning so much about business. I think that's one thing about like Zandy. We know that when we get the entry level, we sometimes doing like very like small work, and I think that is like very like manager don't want to overwhelming us at the same time but at this like we really want to be able to see the big picture and to be involved in that process, the thinking process, and we would love to be able to make recommendation because we have we have different experience. And that is something that is really important. And one thing I want to follow up on that is like one of the things I noticed is like a work can like, for example, this work can be like perfect for me, but it can be like a terrible work for someone else because everyone have a different adjustment of like what is hard for them, what is easy for them. You get that feeling, that like when you have a work that is like challenging enough for you to get very exciting, but there's some that is too easy that you get like and then just like there's like too hard that you're like scared to look at it, you don't want to do it. So there's always like that navigating between that, and I think that's like the part when they come in with Socheata, like they navigating it together, like when it's too hard, provide some guidelines, and then when it's too easy, get her some more challenges. So I think that is an ongoing process.
And just to like add one more thing, I would say I guess another thing I guess to do more of is if you're having like a Gen Z intern, to make sure you're challenging them. The reason I say that is one of my internships, I had to consolidate a town database across all these different, like they had all these different databases and these different versions because they had just merged with another company, and the company was also a conglomerate of other companies, so I had like these different 50 databases. And this was before I even declared my business tech concentration, but I was given that task and they thought I did it within 10 days because it's like I was just there 9 to 5, like that's all I had to do. Of course I'm gonna get it done, but I guess I like that they gave me that challenge, but also I guess they also had underestimated me in the sense of I finished it so quickly. Like the rest of the summer they didn't know what to do with me, and I guess like they thought that it was gonna take me 2 months. And I guess something about our generation, like you mentioned, like I guess it applies in the sense we've had like computers in our face since we were young, and it's like we're gonna grasp these sort of technical aspects quicker. And what might take someone else from maybe an older generation at different speed might not necessarily translate to Gen Z. And so I would say make sure you challenge them. And I'm glad for that challenge because that is actually what made me choose my business tech concentration, because I was literally doing like database schemas and the different tables and forms. I didn't even know that I started drawing the new database on like a notebook because I was like, I need to figure out how to do this. And then I started taking my database systems class, and that's literally what we're doing.
So I want to kind of analyze that, because what you say is like we should challenge Gen Z more, but if I kind of like turn on my non-Gen Z hat, I think a lot of people also saw how Gen Z are very candid and like go on TikTok and like talk like my manager is like so how can we challenge Gen Z in a way that Gen Z can process and feel motivated?
Yeah.
I'm challenging you right now.
Yeah, is you know, like I'm assuming I'm going to be watched if my account is private. And so I personally wouldn't like go talking about my manager online. I would go to like my therapist.
Sometimes like people can cry, you know, like,
Yeah, I was having a conversation the other day with my friend, and I do notice that sometimes in my own generation immaturity gap, I will admit that. In the sense of like, I have friends that are like just a year younger, and I notice these different gaps in overall mentality. And I think it has to do a lot with just the overall environment. For me, having the opportunity, I've been interning different places. I had about 7 internships since I've been in university, and having that experience really helped me develop not just professionally but mature quicker. And I've noticed that I noticed a difference in my peers, like, and I don't blame them because if you don't have that experience, you're not gonna figure out what you want to do. So I do notice that sometimes there's that gap in maturity, and so I would say it is challenging. You know, it's a bit challenge for me to answer it too, but I guess I would say be challenged.
well, I guess that is similar to any kind of relationship, right? For example, in love, like it can't just take from one person doing all the work. It has to like both sides doing the work.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in.
You have a suggestion?
To challenge me.
Yeah.
You challenge me every day.
Go.
No. I think what I'm gonna add to that, I think there's a string between like what we've said about conversation, and I think the thing with challenging is you have to make it challenging without making it you're doubting their skills, right? So with Stefan, we've had this in one-to-one on our end of year review, where I think we work best because I'm able to also challenge her.
Yeah, I'm very open to it.
Yeah. So where as she challenges me in my workflow, I'm challenging, is this something we should even do? Is this or like this data is not, we can't pull this data, we can't pull this report. So being able to take initiative and take ownership as like someone who's junior and challenge your manager, and having your manager be open to that too, creates like a very engaging, I think, team. Yeah.
So this is probably gonna go either way, make me embarrassed or better after our conversation. But when you reflect on when you challenged me, how like what was my reaction? Like how did I behave?
I think you're generally very, very open to my challenges. It's because we trust each other. She trusts me in my technical and data skill, and I trust her to provide me with the business context, and trust her to have me own that process. So I don't think I feel like there's a wall between us. I don't feel as much of a hierarchy that would like you see a lot in like especially corporations where the person's titles, you're watching what you say to this person because they're like my boss's boss, or like this is my boss, maybe she knows more than I do, I shouldn't challenge that. So I think between us and between like our business intelligence team in general, I don't feel that wall. I feel like everyone has something to contribute to the table, and we work together pretty well to tackle problems.
Yes.
Just have a couple of minutes left.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. So I'm going to actually before I forget. Yes. But before I forget, because I know that like I'm not the only one who wants to help Gen Z. I'm not the only one who wants to give back and mentor. So if any of you in the room are also interested in learning how we can maybe potentially work together and help more Gen Z grow skill set or unlock doors for them in this industry, I'm very happy to have a chat. And we're also talking with Melissa and Ray's team and Rob as well to see how we can collaborate. So please, I really would love for you guys to join the journey. So closing, actually we cannot leave this room without talking about AI. And I think that like AI, when you guys talk to it, will be very different compared to how we usually hear at conferences, because Gen Z were not there. So I want to ask you guys, from your perspective, because you are at different career stage, what is the thing that you think AI really helps you, and something that you think AI should not, that we should not outsource to AI?
Yeah. So I really like our keynote speaker, Katie Stroman, how she said that her using ChatGPT to create headlines she felt her brain atrophy, and I feel the same way. I use AI so I have a process where I automate reporting. I use AI to generate that code, but the reporting and the analysis I still do. I feel like that's where I can add value is my insight and my question. How do I turn that data into insights? I'm hesitant in using ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever the tools we have in generating insights, just because I know we all know the hallucination problem. So that's how I've been using it in my workflow, is just to help me write the code, write the technical part, so I can do what I enjoy, which is the analytics and the insights.
So what tools do you use in your workflow to streamline the process, make it faster, and how will I check and balance?
Right.
Just
yeah. So my current process, I automate, like I pull data, I have a Python script that cleans everything up. Instead of writing that on my own, because it's a big file, I just use ChatGPT. I want to keep it. This is the file format, and I want it in this format. This is the things. These are the list of things I need to clean up. These are the things that I need to map. Write me a code to do all that. So then I just feed it the raw data, and it gives me a clean data that I can do the analysis on. Kind of like what your vibe coding session was.
Yeah, so I think Socheata covered a lot of the technical parts. About AI, and I definitely apply that same mentality if you say AI in that sense. But I guess I can give more of an academic sort of perspective on AI. For me, ironically enough, I when I was taking my database systems class, it's like the first time I was really taking a bit heavy technical class. And the first line of this textbook goes, "They're making a joke about how it's horribly written." And I'm like, dang, because I just paid $60 for this. And so, like, I agree with there's own joke. Like, it was so hard to read. Like, it was just explaining in such a difficult way. So I just took the information the textbook was giving me because the information was valid. I literally just put in ChatGPT. I was like, can you please explain this in an easier way to someone that has no technical experience? And I did that throughout the whole course, just putting what the textbook was saying, not actively asking ChatGPT the information, but giving it the information, explaining to me in a way that makes sense so that I can actually process it and go from the perspective of someone who doesn't have any context. I feel like a lot of technical classes, unfortunately, they don't do it on purpose, but the professors in the textbooks can approach the material with this context and pre-notion that they already know. They forget that you don't have any context. So that helped me honestly with that class and ended up playing the game. So
Right.
yeah.
And I want to share a little bit when I'm reflecting, from the keynote session earlier. I was thinking about a lot about like trust in using AI. I know like you guys here, if you guys are the expert, you guys use AI and you're like, this is incorrect, this is good, this is what is good. But like for me, when I'm growing up with like the AI, I was learning a lot with AI. A lot of aspect I never really know. Like I know how to write a website with AI, and I never know how to do it. So that AI just become kind of like always been a mentor for me in some sense. And it's to the point that I sometimes realize that I don't have the trust in myself compared to I trust AI. Like there's some skills I believe I'm good at, like writing caption. I could like if you I can like no, this is not correct, but like there's some aspect when I do it, I was just like, okay, just checking with AI, for example, when it's not really necessary. So I think like just one thing that maybe you guys can notice is like Gen Z, we can sometimes, because we don't have, we expose to AI before we build like a very good foundation of our knowledge. So sometimes we like don't really have that trust in ourselves, and maybe like that is something that when like like someone like if a manager can walk me through like, okay, what is the problem with this, what the thought process is, so that is how like you build the knowledge, building your trust in yourself, and you can be like more than AI being the one you trust.
Yeah, I have something to add very quickly to it because I think probably gonna be helpful for the room. I think one thing that for like just talking about Socheata and myself, like how we work together in the processes that we automate and what remains with us as human. number one, I mean, kind of like a double-edged sword. Publishers have extremely messy data. Like there's the funny word that we talk that other people say like
Garbage in, garbage out.
yes, but like the one thing that has been come out again and again and again is the word nuances. Like everything has nuances, and for better or worse, that lives with us. AI will not be able to just automate anything because it doesn't understand the nuances. For now, and then secondly, I think that one thing that can help with what Thao brought up about the confidence, especially, I think that it's not just Gen Z, by the way. I think it's for any of us who has been using AI. I think that sometimes we doubt ourselves if we don't run something through AI first. One thing I learned is to enable yourself and your team to go and teach others. Because when you have to teach someone, even if you just know about maybe like 50%, but if you have to explain something you know 50% to someone else, you actually learn all of that through that process. So, something we did recently is for Socheata to go to Fordham and teach the Fordham students how to use Python and Tableau. And I'm sure that you have grown a lot more through that process, also understanding how to explain it to someone who doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
So
The value of that comes from the refining my own communication skills too. Is that there's always a knowledge gap, and I think this might go through everyone in the room. There's always a knowledge gap between what you're an expert at and what your audience is. So for me, that experience was very valuable in how I communicate myself to people who might not be looking at the data, might not know what AdOps is, might not know what RevOps is. So that's, I think, my takeaway for that.
great, thank you guys. I think that hopefully, if you have any other questions about Gen Z, they are still here for the rest of the afternoon. And yes, I think just like a takeaway from this, I think that it's very important for us to think about how we can build a system and a culture that foster growth for Gen Z and the next generation of talent that we have. So thank you for coming, and yeah. Hopefully that's the first step.
Right.
But yeah, let's ask more about Gen Z.
Okay.
So why do you bring us here?
Here's the thing. You are all the future leaders, and we have to leave the world a better place than we left it, right?
Yes.
And so I feel like there's a part that, and it actually came up today, was really interesting, of treating people as this big group, as if they all think the same way. And that's not, who works that way? And I think that there's a part of going like, I know I learned from Gen Z, and I think that there's an aspect of like being very hopeful for the future. And so to have you involved with what we're doing, to get experience for what we do, the community, the feelings, and all that kind of stuff, it's really important to have you here.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.